Alright, so it's time to test out the 4K 30 cameras that I own that are also budget cameras. And in this one, I'm not going to show any PTZ or pan tilt zoom cameras like the OBSBOT Tiny or the PTZ or the Insta360 Link. These are just kind of fixed cameras. So the first one I'm going to test out is the kind of king of the hill, the Logitech BRIO 4K that everyone knows and has been using since 2017. We're going to look at that. Also, one of my favorites, the Mokose UCM40, which is a 4K camera that goes for about $85 on Amazon right now. Then we have the OBSBOT Meet 4K, which, by the way, you can kind of flip to be a vertical camera or a horizontal camera. And this one goes for about $120 at the moment on Amazon right now. And I'm going to have a look at an iPhone. I've got an iPhone 11 Pro, the camera on the back, that will also shoot at 4K, just to see what that looks like compared to these cameras. So let's go. Okay, so for each of these cameras, I'm going to just film them at 4K 30. And default settings, I'm not going to tune them in any way. So why don't we start out with the Logitech BRIO 4K from 2017. Okay, so this is the Logitech BRIO 4K filming at 4K 30 with its built-in microphone and its camera with default image settings, just to see and hear what it sounds like and what it looks like. Alright, so that was the Logitech BRIO 4K from 2017. Now let's try out the Mokose UCM40. Okay, so this is the Mokose UCM40 camera and its terrible built-in microphone. If the microphone's bad enough, I'll put it through Adobe Podcast. If I do that, I'll give you the actual sound of the microphone right here so you can just hear what the microphone sounds like in the UCM40. Okay, so that was the Mokose UCM40, and let's try out the OBSBOT Meet 4K. Okay, so this is the OBSBOT Meet 4K on its default settings with its default image and its default microphone, just so you can see and hear what the OBSBOT Meet 4K looks and sounds like. Okay, so rounding out the comparison, let's try it out on an iPhone. This is the Pro 11 from 2019. Okay, so this is the iPhone Pro 11, 2019 version of the iPhone, just to compare what this looks like and sounds like to some of the 4K webcams. Okay, so you saw with the iPhone, it's a great image, but because of the 3 different camera sensors that are on the back, it's hard to know which one to look at. So my eyes probably weren't looking at the right image sensor on the back there on the iPhone 11 Pro. But I just want to show all 4 of them right now because they all have completely different image signatures to them, and you heard they had different sound signatures as well. So this is all of them compared to what they each look like. Alright, so how did all these different cameras do? Well, I just wanted to look at each one of them side by side, and that quadrant shot, I think it tells most of the story, in that the BRIO is still a little bit on the yellow side. It's a lot better than it used to be prior to the firmware upgrade. The Mokose is pretty good. It's got a bit more of that webcam look to it, as does the OBSBOT Meet 4K. I would say the OBSBOT Meet 4K is actually pretty close in terms of the color balance and the color rendering that my Sony camera is. Now the Sony camera is a ZV-E10 with a Viltrox 23mm f1.4 lens. So that setup would be about $1,100. So it's kind of matching from a coloring standpoint, at least, how that Sony is tuned, but it still looks like a webcam to me, so it's not the best image. Now, if I look at the actual iPhone, you can see compared to all the other ones, the field of view is a little bit narrower, of course, but the detail is pretty crisp and pretty amazing compared to all the different other 4K webcams. And I gotta break some other news to you in that the ZV-E10, the whole time I've been shooting that at 1080p 60 frames per second. And if I put those side by side, I'll put it side by side first with the Logitech BRIO. Now I'll put it side by side against the Mokose. Now I'll put it side by side against the OBSBOT Meet, and put it side by side against the iPhone. You'll see that despite the fact that all of these are 4K on the right-hand side and 1080p on the left-hand side, the 1080p image looks probably as good, in some cases better, than the 4K webcam or camera image. That's because you kind of need the right size sensor and you need the right dynamic range, all of those things for a 4K image to look as crisp and sharp as you think it should look at 4K. Yes, the sensors are capable of all of that, but you have to have the right lighting, natural light preferably, all of those things to jive in order for the image in those cameras to look better than my 1080p 60 image, even though I've got them right next to each other. I've been swapping them out as I go. So my overall verdict, I would say they're all kind of similar-ish in terms of the images by default. They've got different color signatures, obviously. But if you do have an iPhone, probably iPhone X and newer, with a decent rear camera on it, it's likely going to outperform most webcams if it can shoot at 4K, if you want a 4K capture. So I would say use that compared to all the other ones. But if you don't, obviously the iPhone's around $300 to buy even on the used market. So in that case, if I have to put it up against the different webcams, I gotta say, for me, it's probably still the BRIO. If I do a little bit of color tweaking on the BRIO 4K, I think I can tune that image a bit more to give it a little more pink, for example, and get rid of a little bit of the yellow. But I think that's a pretty good camera. Again, it's a 2017 model for the money at around $130-ish right now. I've seen it as low as $123 on Amazon recently. And you can get it refurbed pretty low as well. Now, the OBSBOT Meet 4K is probably my next best pick. It has a lot more software capabilities than the Logitech BRIO 4K, and has background removal, a bunch of those other types of things, and you can twist it and turn it to be a vertical camera. It's got a nice build quality as well, compared to, I would say, compared to the BRIO, a bit less plasticky and a bit more metal in terms of how its fit and finishes. But, you know, I think it's kind of a toss-up between the two. I would lean a little bit towards the BRIO 4K 2017 model if you can get it for a good price. So if you like this review and you got value from it, be sure to give me a like. Comment, let me know what camera you like the best. It is kind of a almost a religious debate sometimes amongst the different camera enthusiasts out there. Some people are really, really fixated on the sharpness of the image and the focus of the image. I kind of like to balance the color balance and everything else. But you can leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as always, thank you for watching.